Hello and welcome. This is my short-form documentary about Leif Erikson, the Viking who discovered America. Our story starts from Iceland. Today's Iceland has a population of 308,000 and is one of the safest countries in the world. Originally discovered by a Norwegian named Nadas, the Viking era, which sailed through history from around 793 to 1066, was a time when Norsemen boldly used rivers and oceans as their highways for trading, raiding, and sometimes just a bit of head-turning conquest. In 981, we have the colorful tale of Eric the Red discovering Greenland. Banished from Norway and later given the cold shoulder in Iceland, Eric the Red decided to settle down in Greenland with 25 ships, his entourage, and a whole lot of stuff. It's said that within a mere 2 decades, over 3,000 Vikings were living in Greenland as farmers, proving that when they put their minds to it, Vikings could really settle down. Now, while history from those times is as elusive as a long-lost treasure chest buried deep in the sands of time, we mostly rely on Icelandic sagas, stories written centuries after the events, making us wonder if they are fact or maybe just the world's first historical fanfiction. But hey, like any good story, you need both the heroes and the villains. In this case, the historical records were often left by the folks the Norsemen had a friendly chat with. It's like hearing one side of a heated battle. There's probably a bit of exaggeration involved, but it's a start. Grab a cup of coffee, maybe even a sandwich or two as we take a look at his story. At least I know I'm going to go raid my fridge a bit. The Norse explorer Leif Erikson traveled to Newfoundland hundreds of years before Christopher Columbus discovered North America. We can never know for sure who was the first European to set foot in North America, but one thing is certain: it was definitely not Christopher Columbus. Everyone knows from their history lessons that in 1492 Columbus sailed over the Blue Ocean. Over 4 voyages he discovered much of the Caribbean and the north and east coasts of South and Central America in his quest to find a northern passage to the spice-rich East Indies. Columbus, however, never set foot in what is now North America. A few years later, in 1497, the Venetian explorer Zuan Chaboto John Cabot to the rest of us set out under the auspices of King Henry VII of England and landed in what we now call Newfoundland. So, was Cabot the first European to set foot in North America? No, not even close. That honor is claimed most strongly by a plucky Norse explorer named Leif Erikson, who landed there almost 500 years before. Leif Erikson was the middle son of Eric the Red, the founder of the Norse settlement in Greenland. We don't know exactly when and where he was born, but it's believed to have been around 970 CE in the recently colonized Iceland. Leif's grandfather, Thorvald Asfoldsson, had been banished from Norway for manslaughter, which was fairly common in those days, and lived in exile in Iceland with his son Eric. When Eric himself was exiled from Iceland for killing Eyjolf the Foul, he set out west with his family and became the first permanent settler on Greenland. In 999 CE, Leif and his crew set out from Greenland to visit Norway. Following a summer in the Hebrides after being blown off course, they eventually arrived in Norway, and Leif became a member of King Olaf's official entourage. He converted to Christianity and was tasked with introducing the religion to Greenland, which he started upon his return. According to the saga of the Greenlanders, Leif heard the tale of Bjarni Herjolfsson, an explorer who, on attempting to find Greenland for the first time with his crew, was blown off course and sighted hospitable-looking land with mountains, hills, and forests to the west. Anxious to get to Greenland to see his family there, Bjarni refuses to investigate and simply relays mention of the land to the west and was chided by King Eric for not investigating further. It could well have been the lack of timber that piqued Leif's interest enough that he bought Bjarni's ship and raised a crew of 35 and set out to discover the verdant land of the Americas, although we can't really be sure about it. Leif and his crew set sail from Greenland to try to find the place discovered by Bjarni. They first encountered a land of ice and stone, which they called Helluland, land of the flat stones, now widely believed to be Baffin Island. Seeing little there of interest, they continued on. Their next stop was a forested land with white shores, which they named Markland, meaning woodland. This is thought to be somewhere on the Labrador coast of modern-day Canada. Again, this did not fit the description of Bjarne's rich and fertile discovery, and so once more they carried on. After another couple of days of sailing southwest, they finally encountered a place that seemed like the place they were searching for. They landed at a headland with an island offshore and a pool accessible to ships at high tide in an area with shallow sea and sandbanks. They established a camp and explored the land, finding great forests for timber, wild wheat growing abundantly, and huge vines of grapes. Leif called the area Vinland, Vineland, and he and his crew remained there until the spring. They then set sail back to Greenland, loaded with timber, wheat, and grapes for their people at home. On the way home, the saga tells of them seeing a shipwreck and rescuing 2 sailors trapped there. It's not clear where this was, whether it was on the mainland or an island, and so it's possible that Leif Erikson was not actually the first European to set foot in North America either. It's difficult to pinpoint exactly where Leif and his crew visited. Helluland's description fits Baffin Island perfectly, but Markland could have been almost anywhere along the Labrador coast. Leif's settlement in Vinland, however, is most commonly believed to be Landsaux Meadows, the only known Norse archaeological site in North America. The site was added to the UNESCO World Heritage List in 1978. Historians do not definitively know why exactly the Vikings left North America so abruptly, but theorize that they left as they did not have the necessary resources to sustain far-flung remote settlements, encountered hostile Native Americans that outnumbered them, and were victims of abrupt climate change. The settlement at Landsaux Meadows was only in use for roughly 20 years or so. It's estimated that the Vinland settlements lasted the same amount of time. Landsaux Meadows is a site consisting of 8 buildings, dwellings, or workshops on the northernmost tip of Newfoundland. The excavated remains of wood-framed peat turf buildings are similar to those found in Norse Greenland and Iceland. The lack of burial sites and tools suggests that it was not a long-lived settlement, but rather could have been a camp set up as a boat repair facility. The presence of certain food items, such as butternuts, suggests that those who inhabited the settlement must have traveled further south, at least as far as New Brunswick. It's also possible that Vinland refers not simply to one place, but the whole country, or at least a region of it. Many scholars disagree with the possibility that vines were growing grapes in Newfoundland, as the temperatures would not have been high enough. So as far-fetched it might be, it is entirely possible that Vikings managed to sail even further south than we know, but it is exactly that, far-fetched. The legacy of Leif Erikson. The first statue of Leif Erikson was erected in Boston in 1887, and a replica was erected in Milwaukee. In 1925, at the Minnesota State Fair, President Calvin Coolidge marked the centenary of the first official immigration of Norwegians to America by declaring that Leif Erikson had indeed been the first European to discover America. As the first immigration boat arrived on October 9, 1825, and Leif's voyage was known to have taken place in the fall, October 9th was settled upon as the day to commemorate both events for Norwegian Americans. In 1929, the Wisconsin legislature passed a bill to declare it Leif Erikson Day, and in 1964 the U.S. Congress authorized and requested the president to proclaim each year that October 9th be Leif Erikson Day. In connection with the World Exhibition in Seattle in 1962, a 5-meter-high monument to Leif was erected. A smaller version was donated to Trondheim in connection for the City Millennium in 1997, and stands by the modern percenturate development watching cruise ships arrive. Whether you believe North America was first encountered by Leif Erikson, Bjarne Herjolfsson, or the 2 random sailors rescued by Leif on his way home, it's clear that Norsemen can certainly lay claim to being the first Europeans to have visited the continent.